In this program, we talk about being placed in another country, intra-company transfer. Susan from Personnel is here to take us through this subject.
Disclaimer. Information in this program is given as is and without liability to us. Always seek professional advice if you are not sure about anything relating to this topic. All liability is waived by us on this matter. Let us get into when either the company directs you to work in another country or you find an opportunity to transfer to another of the company's international locations.
Thanks, Keisha. So for instance, you are working for a U.S. media company in London, England, and because of your experience with the company's processes, when a spot becomes vacant in New York, USA, the company offers you to apply for that position. This is an example of an intra-company transfer. The USA has designated a visa category to facilitate such transfers as it benefits the U.S. business to be able to source talent to fill a specific need and thus the wider U.S. economy. This visa is known as L1, intra-company transfer. The basic rules are that the employee must have worked for the U.S. company in a specialized skilled position for at least a year and acquired specialist knowledge of gain to the U.S. company and to bring that home to the United States operations. There are other requirements pertaining to minimum pay and also minimum size of the U.S. company. There are similar visa schemes in other countries to allow similar transfers. For instance, the United Kingdom has its intra-company transfer visa, or ICT, which works similarly to the U.S. LE1 and so on. The U.S. L1 is one of the few non-immigrant visas which does offer a path to citizenship. If you manage to stay on in the job on it for 5 years, then you can apply for U.S. naturalization. The employer pays for L1 USA or, in the case of UK, ICT visas.
That sounds great for people who want to try working in another country. What if my employer mandates me to go and work in another country, and I do not want to? Can they do that?
From a US and UK perspective, yes, they can, at least anywhere where the USA are allowed to travel and not under sanctions. The same for UK-based employees. This is unless there is something in the employment contract against this. In the USA, you are generally employed at will, as it is called, so it is take it or leave it. The company should pay all related costs, including the cost of the visa. It is quite rare that a company would mandate this, but in theory, it could happen. You, of course, have the option to quit your job if you don't want to move to another country. So let's get over some practical points. Check what help personnel, human resources can provide. At the very least, the visa application on your side. Often they will engage with a third-party immigration law firm. This will be of great help to you. You will have to do some work, likely provide an up-to-date CV and a detailed job description. This should focus on your specialized knowledge of the company's internal processes. For instance, you are looking after the company's websites at the London office, and the New York team does a similar job, so your skills are very valuable and transferable. You will need to ensure that your passport is up to date with a minimum duration of 6 months, but a brand new multi-year passport is ideal. You may also require to get a local police report, stamped and validated, and there may be some health check requirements. The other big thing is living arrangements. Most companies provide some relocation assistance. $5,000 is a common figure. This should help you at least moving costs. If you own a home in your home country, you could opt to rent it out rather than selling it, unless you are very sure that your transfer is going to be permanent. If you rent it out, it is best to do so managed. That is via a lettings agency who will take care of the admin of the rental. For spouses, they are generally allowed to accompany the visa holder and may work under US L1 and UK ICT anyway. Children can also accompany. So there are more things to do, like finding work or something to do such as school with anyone accompanying you. These visas are tied to the job, so if your job ends for whatever reason, you must return to your country of origin. This unless you manage to naturalize as a US citizen on the L1. The UK ICT does not offer a path to citizenship. Plan for unforeseen things such as illness of a relative at home. For the US, L1 visa, try and stay for the 5 years and opt for US citizenship even if you feel homesick. After 5 years, you always have the option to go back. People quite often romanticize about living back home in the UK. For instance, quit their job in L1, visa, move back to the UK, and then regret it. Too late. So wait and work in the USA the 5 years if on an L1.
So in the end, is this something you will advise people to do?
Yes, definitely. Unless you have barriers such as health. Getting the experience from working in another country is a huge merit and opens doors even if you return. You will make new connections and probably new friends and get a new and valuable perspective on life. One final bit of advice is to study customs and laws in your new country. In the UK, for instance, almost everyone jaywalks from time to time when crossing the road, and it is generally tolerated, but not at all in the USA. The penalties are quite steep. In the USA, avoid knocking on a stranger's door due to the gun culture. In the UK, whilst you have great freedoms, they are not as absolute as in the USA. So you can't say quite anything online, for instance. An opinion can be perceived as controversial, even against the law, and you can be jailed for what you say online. The UK and many other countries lack the freedom of speech afforded in the US First Amendment. The governments of the EU countries, as well as the UK, also have greater censorship powers than allowed in the United States for the same lack of First Amendment. Accidentally passing on a sexually transmitted disease is generally a private matter in the United Kingdom and many European countries where the law doesn't involve, but not in Sweden, where it is a felony to not disclose any known diseases before a sexual act, as is the case in some U.S. states, where this is also a felony with some severe penalties which may, depending on the state, result in long jail sentences. Prostitution is legal in a number of European countries, including the United Kingdom and Holland, but it is illegal in the whole of the United States, with the exception of the state of Nevada. Smoking cannabis is illegal in most places, including the USA, with the exception of some U.S. states such as California and Colorado, but it is still illegal at a federal level, so do not transport it over the federal border at airports, for instance, and do not mention consumption so that authorities may gain knowledge, as in theory this can be a ground for termination of your L1, as this is a visa issued by the U.S. federal government. In other words, do not post Facebook photos of you smoking a joint somewhere in Hollywood, for instance.
Wow, that is some information. What about taxation?
Most countries have tax treaties. There is the 183-day rule that you pay tax in the country, where you stay 183 days or more. This can get a bit messy, so most people just report the relevant income to their respective authorities, and that is it. This can be a bit of a gray area, but it is the easiest solution. If you have doubts, talk to a tax advisor. In general, report as little as possible. Another thing to evaluate is what to bring with you. Laptops, iPads, cell phones are generally multi-voltage, so will work anywhere, but larger appliances are almost always fixed voltage, so may not work where you're going. The most obvious differences are between Central and North America and the Old World. A microwave from USA will blow up if you try and run it in the UK, Kenya, Russia, or Australia. If you move, say, from the UK to continental Europe, Africa, or Australia, and vice versa, everything will work fine. Same if you move from USA to Canada. Everything will work fine as the countries have the same electrical systems. Driving licenses generally work for up to a year, then you will need to get the local license. This can involve a simple driving test and a form at the local DMV. Oh, and if you have medical conditions, ensure that you get enough medications to tie you over during transition to a new doctor, and make sure that you get a new doctor where you are going. The data on approval rate for the US L1 visa from 2021 is 94%. I do not have any data on the UK ICT, but I imagine that the approval rating is fairly high there also. The processing time for a US L1 visa is 2 to 4 months. Premium processing for an additional $2,500 is available, and bring the time down to within 15 calendar days. The processing time for a UK ICT visa is about 8 weeks, and a premium processing option is available at an additional £829 sterling for short-term staff and £1,050 for long-term staff, which brings the processing time down to within 5 working days. I think that is about it.
Thanks, Susan. We will wrap it up here. If you have any comments, please leave them below in the comments section. Please also remember not to share any personal information relating to yourself or others. Thank you for watching.